So while we have more people joining in, I let's start the session, and we expect more people to be a part of this session while we move ahead. So firstly, a very warm morning, afternoon, or evening to one and all. Thank you very much for joining us for this fireside chat on Deviation nSpector. Let me take this opportunity to introduce to you our speakers for today, who are going to bring to the table the perspective of different critical functions together. Firstly, I'd like to introduce to you all Ajinkya Varade, Technical Lead nCircle Tech, a seasoned tech professional, a scholar, and a gold medalist with experience in working with 3D BIM and point cloud. He is an in-house expert on working with advanced technologies and is a demonstrated problem solver with years of experience in problem breakdown and developing products for automating workflows. Welcome, Ajinkya. Welcome to the table today. Next in the speakers panel with us today, we have Saurabh Kulkarni, Manager BIM Services at nCircle Tech, a seasoned tech brain again with a demonstrated history in project management and BIM tools, with 500 plus projects executed. An in-house expert leading and supporting teams to create project information models using advanced digital technology by bringing together data, drawings, and schedules for clients across the globe. Great to have you with us today, Saurabh. Before we ask our speakers more about this tool in detail for what we have gathered today and understand how it's planned to revolutionize the workflow of BIM modeling, I'd first like to ask our audience, how critical do you think is quality check when we hear about scan to BIM modeling process? Please hit in your responses in the chat box and we'll have a look at it while we move ahead in this session. Before we head forward in the session, I would quickly run through the agenda that we plan to cover today in this session. So, in today's session, we are going to deal with what industry problem was surfacing, why we thought about this, developing this plugin, what is the existing process versus how is it going to be as a new process, ideology behind the development, the journey and the roadmap of this plugin, how can we miss on the user experience, of course, and last but definitely not the least, the Q&A session. Before we dig deep into what is exactly this Deviation nSpector, I'm curious to know what exactly made us develop this tool. And I'm sure even most of our audience today would also be either inquisitive or even facing the challenge themselves. So may I ask our speakers today to help us understand if QC is really needed in every scan to BIM modeling project? If yes, why?
Yes,
So,
Nick,
yeah,
would
thank
like
you.
to take this question. So I think the answer lies within the core belief of nCircle, which is we are the problem solvers with automation first approach. nCircle has been doing Revit plugins for past 10 years or more. Ever since we started managing the BIM services or the BIM modeling department as well, we started to face the actual problems that any BIM engineer or any BIM modeler will face, especially with respect to scan to BIM. As we know, the scan to BIM project are used for renovation, and it is very important to capture the as-built condition as it is. Wrong model obviously means the wrong starting point for redesigning purposes. As we know, how critical are the projects where we need to do some structural changes, new design updates for MEP and everything. So modeling with perfection is the key for any project success. As I mentioned, precision and perfection is the key for a growing business as well. And small or bigger, any company do not want to lose any of its client due to poor quality. We have seen in the past, like multiple companies, many companies have lost $1 million projects just because they were not able to put a consistent delivery in terms of quality. And as we all know, the scan to BIM modeling is fairly a monotonous job where the modeler is bound to make some mistake. As the process is fairly monotonous, it is a lengthy with a lot of back and forth between the modeler and the QC person. To solve this, sometimes multiple levels of QC is needed for getting the accurate output. And that is where too much time is got consumed only in terms of QC process for that project.
So in that case, Saurabh, I would further like to ask you, can you help us understand how was the manual process before?
Sure. So manual process included a lot of time, and to be honest, it was a real pain. We generally followed a process where, depending on the project complexity, we were taking sections at certain intervals, as you can see on the screen. Then the reviewer used to go into each and every section, check whether the elements are modeled correctly, not modeled correctly, what are the issues, and then report it back to the person who have done it. The second process that many people use is to have the model and the point cloud data link into Navis work, chop it into small section or small portion, and check for each and every element. But in this process, we had to rely on reviewers' diligence. And whenever we have dependency on a human to perform things like QC, we all know things can go south very easily. That's why we needed a tool which can help us easily identify the errors while we are taking the final output.
That sounds so tiring already, Saurabh. Before we move ahead, my dear audience, I would like to ask you all, are you still doing something similar with your QC workflows? Type yes in the chat box and we can definitely help you out. While we get our audience pin their responses in the chat, I'd like to ask you, Saurabh, now that we know about the manual process, would you like to throw some light on what changes have been brought by the automated process with the application of this new plugin, which we are calling Deviation Inspector?
Sure. So as mentioned earlier, the manual process will have always a risk of getting errors in the final output. And it is a very nature of human to perform differently under different condition, different situation. And no one will want to have any issues, any quality issues in their final delivery output. So we wanted to have a system where we can, have the automated process uh, we succeed so that we can have a higher chance of success.
Uh, so now that we have listened to the user's take on this, it would be interesting to now turn the stage towards the creator. So Ajinkya, coming to you, I'm keen to know what's your perspective on this as a technical person.
Okay, thanks, Nigda. First, I would like to discuss about the idea behind the entire development. So, the main idea struck when I firsthand observed how much searching and navigating for a minute analysis a QC person would perform. And then there are still chances of human error in the overall process. So, the entire idea revolved around how we can minimize both the time consumption as well as the human error factor. On top of that, once the errors were detected, the QC report was created and shared with the modeler. And then the process is somewhat similar, locating the region where there is a correction to be done and then correcting it. And then again, the document is shared back with the QC person where he'll repeat the steps and check if it is corrected or not. So, as a developer, the thought process revolved around why don't we make it a two-step process? One would be a self QC and another would be a tester QC. So, what would make it simpler? How can we address both the above mentioned problems, that is, the overall time consumption and the human error factor, in some simple form that anyone can simply integrate into their daily routine?
Okay,
Yeah.
so my next question to you would be in that case, what were your initial thoughts while developing this tool?
Okay, to answer that, let me put this in a form of entire workflow, or we can call it an evolution of tool. So initially, when we started, we worked on calculating the distance and recording the values into specific deviation ranges. So referring to the distance threshold or an overall average value, the user would know the amount of correction that would be required for model to complete. And in due time, complications were observed when there were too many numbers to consider. And then going forth, again, when the new members joined us, it was really hard for them to adapt to. So now, again, we came back to the biggest question is how do we make it easier for everyone to easily get used to it? One thing led to another, and deep diving into how human brain adapts and learns faster is in its very fundamental state is by visuals. So everyone must have observed that kindergarten books are so rich with images and more importantly, vibrant colors. So you can see here, if we talk about the psychology of colors, when you look at something that is red, it immediately indicates that basically it is something to do with danger or stop in this particular scenario. Yellow goes for wait or warning, and green is a go. So if we see the same regions, those are concerning according to standards in variable colors, all you have to do is to navigate to the region which is highlighted in the concerning color. And it is as simple as that. The QC person no more has to go through the entire model piece by piece in order to highlight if there's an error or not. We're just trying to make it as simple as possible. So after all this being said, I'm sure you all must be keen on knowing how the plugin actually works.
That's exactly what I was about to ask you. Thanks for anticipating.
Okay, so without any further ado, let me ask you to present a video that will explain how the tool works in reality. So basically what we have done is we have created an entire tab inside of Revit itself to make it an end-to-end plugin from Revit to Revit. First, we have three buttons. First, let's discuss about the About button here. It shows general information about the tool as well as the current version. And then there is also the registered licensing that you have. So the time period left for the same. Going forward, the main button that we are actually looking forward to is the Run Deviation. On clicking that, there are few simple values that a user would have to input. First value would be the first limit that the user has the choice to put in the actual threshold or the range that he wants to define, and then choosing a color next to it so that range points would be displayed in those points. Going, let's say every time the user should not actually click on this. Yeah, can you please pause there for a minute? Yeah. So a user should not put in the values every time. So we have also provided a default value, which has a predefined presets of 10, 20, 30 mm, along with the unique green, yellow, and red colors, as we discussed earlier. Then there is an option for selecting the point cloud. Now that we have the model, we wanted to select which specific point cloud we want to compare it with. Sometimes what we have is there are multiple point clouds attached into Revit as links. So which specific one do you want to go ahead and carry out the comparison with? And then there is an option for selecting a location. That location specifically talks about where do you want to save the resulting files. And while the entire process is happening, there is some metadata that is generated. And that is the exact location where everything will be stored. And then the results will be also can be accessed from there after the process is done. Yeah, moving forward, we also have an advanced button here. So in advanced options, let me just go from top down. Yeah. So what we have here is first is compare only visible elements. Can you please pause? Can we go back to the advanced options? Yeah, going. So in the advanced menu, we actually had many options, such as first one was compare only linked models, compare only visible elements. Can you just pause the video for a minute? I'll get back to this point. Yeah. The first option was to choose if you want to compare only the elements which are visible in the Revit document view. So what happens is the Revit document is filled with all sorts of elements that we have in our model. Yeah, as you can see on the screen. And then some of the elements that we are actually working on is in the active view, and some of them we are actually hiding them, or we are just going into the graphics visibility options and disabling them. So we can choose to compare only those elements which are in view. Then second option is compare linked models. Revit provides users to link Revit models as external links. So many times what happens, the project is divided into separate scopes as architectural, then we have structural, and then we have MEP. And now we can link those and consider into the deviation process as well for the entire model as one. Yeah, then going forward, as we choose all these options, we have also option of choosing specific elements that you want to carry out the comparison with. We have list of all the elements that are present in document. Then you can just select, by default, it will be selected all. And then you can choose which elements you want to compare with and then go forward with it. So carrying on. Once you have just filled in these few values and selected the elements that you want to go ahead with, the entire analysis starts on a trigger of a single button. And what you can expect as a result would be point clouds in those defined deviation ranges being attached to the model at the exact position. And just something here is what we have given kind of a report which would help you quickly grasp the health of the entire project completion. So in this particular case, there is some like 8.9% of work that is to be very critically taken into consideration and in order to get the project into a completion phase. And this particular report would be available only for that specific document run, that specific process. What happens is once you restart the entire document, it would reset the process and projects. But this image and the pie chart would be saved at the metadata location, which you can refer to for comparing the next process iterations and the earlier process iterations. Yeah, and then as I mentioned earlier, the point clouds, basically whichever we are carrying out the entire process for deviation, those ranges are attached back to the model at that particular location. And it helps us quickly grasp that now you can see there are many points which are closer to surface and those are green. So they are within the limited range. And comparing out of the entire region, what happens is we have the point cloud is quite big and the model can be in the center of it. So we have chose to give it a different color so that we can hide it all together. So you can focus on the region that you really want to have the comparison and understand where exactly the process is right now. Yeah, over to you, Snigdha.
That's interesting, Ajinkya. I see it's more like nostalgia of the colors that we have been identifying since childhood. So it's simple yet automated. I would like to ask my audience if, I mean, now that we know how the tool works, if you have any queries, please feel free to go ahead and put in the chat box and we'll try to take them up during our Q&A session. So I already see questions pouring in, Ajinkya. We'll definitely take them up. Moving ahead, so now that we know and witnessed how the tool works, let's ask the internal user, how is it helping them? So Saurabh, could you please show us how you are exactly using the result of this plugin? I'm sure even our audience must be curious to know that.
Sure, Snigdha. But before demonstrating that, I would like to put a few images in front of our audience. Now, with this image, can anyone identify the modeling errors? Don't worry, don't beat yourself up. We can easily look at the image, the other image that we have, and now you can at least identify, okay, there is something wrong wherever there is a red element or point, right? So going ahead, because of this, we can, like Ajinkya was mentioning, because of these colors, we can easily identify the elements which are wrong, we need to check, and which are good to go. So moving ahead with the video that we have for the actual use. Okay. Here, as you can see on the left-hand side, you can see a section, and on right-hand side, you can see a 3D view. So what we are doing here is, we are just moving this section line from top to bottom so that we can see each and every element at certain intervals of the project. And here you can easily identify wherever we have these red marks, yellow marks, are the areas where we need to see if elements are not modeled correctly, or are there elements which are off the tolerance limit that we have been set, like 10 mm, 20 mm, 30 mm, right? You can, by default, I mean, you can choose the tolerance limit as per your convenience or as per the project requirement. Now, here, as Ajinkya have also mentioned, these 3-point clouds have been loaded directly inside Revit. I can easily see each and every element that has been missing or that's been not modeled correctly within the tolerance limit. Only one thing here is, even if you feel like there are too many reds, it may be because some of the elements were not in scope. That's why that's haven't been modeled, and that's why the point cloud has been showing red color in there. I guess this will help other guys as well, whoever is doing the. Yes, Nigda.
That That's interesting to see, Saurabh, and I'm sure the way you have explained it is definitely helping you guys as the internal user. I would like to thank you and Ajinkya both. It definitely was a worthy session, and we got really good knowledge about how the QC check is not just vital, but how it has been before and now what we are doing, and how this plugin is going to revolutionize. I'm sure our audience would also agree with me, as this definitely seems to be of great help in BIM QC check. But having said that, as it is said that until you understand your customers deeply and genuinely, you cannot truly serve them. And we definitely understand the significance of this credibility. So, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our special guest for today, Alan Azzo from Sweco, an end user of this plugin we have been discussing today. He is a project manager to a team that specializes in creating digital twins for real estate owners that play a key role in the property's life cycle. Their major focus point is creating these digital twins, which are utilized within different prop tech solutions for construction purposes and for maintenance in a cost effective way, while still maintaining all the important aspects of the buildings, and this way building a proper and ready to use BIM model. A very warm welcome to you, Alan. It's great to have you with us today in this session.
Thank you very much.
So, Alan, now that you have been a part of this session and you have already seen what Ajinkya and Saurabh had to say about this plugin, I would like to ask you, since you have already listened to this discussion, as an end user, can we say that QC really directly affects the project delivery?
Yeah, definitely. By having a good quality check routines and like good quality check team, it definitely affects the project delivery because that's how you avoid all the errors that can occur during the project. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And if I may ask, are there any best practices for quality checking which are dominant in the market as a whole for BIM modeling?
Um, I think this answer would vary depending on like your client's needs and the purpose of the project that you're doing, and also what the aim is. But I would say like as a rule of thumb, good way is to have an automated process, and this way you utilize the already data-rich BIM model, and you keep it automated, so you try to avoid human error. But of course, there will always be some human errors. But yeah, anything that's automated is usually good.
Okay. So, having said that, would you like to share with us what was your workflow for QC before you use this plugin? Was it the same as what was just explained by Saurabh?
Yeah, definitely. I see similarities between us. Our workflow for QC has always involved a different set of tools in our toolbox, and it depends on like what type of client we have, what type of project we're doing. But when we come to the nSpector tool, uh, I really like it. We've started to add it and implement it in our toolbox, so to say, as a tool to use, and we let it run in the background, the tool, and that way we can quickly like see where the project is at what stage, and even if it's like worth the time to bring into a full QC. Um, so yeah, that's like how we use it.
Okay, sounds interesting. And how much effort or time was put in this QC before?
Mm, this would definitely vary between like which project we're looking at, but I would say like I could easily save an good 1 to 2 hours by using the tool because it will really tell me what stage the project is. Because if I let it run in the background while doing other work, you see an result of the tool after it has done the analyze, and then you can quickly determine by the color or the like the settings you have put in where the project is and if it's even worth the time to check the model. And also the output, it's recap files. You just send it back to the modeler and be like, "Hey, hello, this is your errors. Please correct them before sending the model back to us."
So, can we say that the tool helped you and your team to reduce the QC efforts?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Uh, and a lot of the benefits are like basically what I've mentioned. It tells you at what stage a project is in, and
Hmm.
it's a time saver.
Okay, since you mentioned about the benefits, so what benefits do you see by using this tool as compared to the manual process or some other tools which probably you have used before?
I like that it's already, like plugged into Revit. You have it automatically, and it's this like the main strength is that it can be run in the background. You can do other work while the nSpector tool is generating the result, and that way you have a quick overview of your project.
So, do you think this tool might help with increasing your productivity and in turn maybe the project profit margins?
Mm, well, for me, like project margins, it's a bit too early to say, but definitely our productivity. Like it helps me save my time and manage it better when it comes to point cloud projects.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Alan. Having your insights were valuable definitely because that help us understand how it's exactly being adapted or accepted by the end users in the industry. So it was great to have you today with us, and your inputs definitely were insightful. I'm sure even my audience would agree with me on this. Thanks a lot again for becoming a
Thank you
part of
for
the
having
session.
me on.
Coming back to our lovely audience and the speakers, before we open our session for Q&A, one last question that I'm keen to know about is what's the way ahead? What I mean is, are we planning any updates or upgrades for this plugin? What are the future plan for this revolutionary tool? Ajinkya, Saurabh, can any one of you please throw some light on this?
Yes, Snigdha, I will take this one. So, to answer that question, there are a few things in our roadmap right now. And to start off with, I would say that point cloud does require a larger file support. And considering we are working with point cloud, it highly depends on how your system configuration is. So, we are looking forward to optimizing in terms of memory usage and overall time consumption based on your current RAM sizes. And considering the point cloud and the model that I showcased you right now, there is also an option for us to process only selected entities in a selected region. So let's first say I have a multi-floor building. I could actually enable a section region which would consider the entire comparison into that specific region itself, so that the entire point cloud or the larger file has not to be actually processed altogether just to analyze that specific region. Yeah, we're definitely in the process of building and developing this going forward and looking forward to many people adding their if unique requirements, and definitely it would help us grow the entire thing as
Good to hear that. I mean, impressed with the existing tool itself and hearing you out with the upgrades that are being planned. I'm sure it is going to be a great help for QC check. I would request my audience to start putting in your questions if you have any. Now that we have seen how the plugin was developed, we have also seen how it has been used internally and by the end users. Please feel free to punch in your questions in the chat and we will try to answer as much as possible. Now I would like to open the Q&A session and we would like to take up the first few questions that I already see in the chat box. So the first question that I see is from Jessica. Can we get report in any document format?
well.
So
Yeah, I would take this one. Okay, Jessica, right now what we have done is we are actually showcasing this in terms of a pie chart or a visual manner. But if the requirement suggests that it needs to be documented in any text format or let's first say CSV, the entire thing can be written to a CSV and exported as well.
okay, we have, and I hope that clears your doubt, Jessica. So yes, I mean, I think your question was well answered by Ajinkya already. Moving on to the next question that we have in the chat is, can we get the output in some ranges, like level wise?
Okay, again, I think I would take this. If you suggest range wise, and yeah, so definitely as I discussed earlier for the future scope, we do have in development the section region wise entire analysis carrying out the entire analysis in a section region. But if you are saying ranges and level wise, yeah, definitely there can be something thought about that as well. If a specified level range is provided, and that would also help us enhance the entire selecting section region rather than manually, we can take the levels and the region in between those levels and carry out the analysis. Yeah, this is a doable, and I think we would consider this.
Okay. I see another question. In UK Rail, we work with Bentley MicroStation, and EcoSim is the software compatible with Bentley. So the question basically is the software compatible with Bentley software? Is the plugin compatible with Bentley software?
Okay, so to answer that right now, this is an end-to-end software that we have created for Revit itself, which would help us give a solution from Revit to Revit. But the entire core concept lies with our algorithms and logic. So if your software does provide an interface for us, like an API for us to interact with and create a custom plugin for it, yeah, I think going forward we can have the same logic into place and develop a custom plugin for that.
So I hope that helps answer your question, Saeed. Moving on to the next question that I see in the chat is, can we select a portion in Revit and then run the deviation?
Yeah, to repeat the same thing, then yes, we are looking forward to getting this update with the section region analysis. And yeah, considering the questions we have surrounding this region, yeah, we'll definitely expedite this process and look forward to releasing this.
Just to add a bit to this answer, I saw both Jessica and Joe asking this. The way I've used it personally, we've tried to export from our point clouds parts of the like building or whatever it is we're modeling that we want to see, and this way we would like a lot of times we've done like just a level of that building, and that way you have a portion of your point cloud and you just run the deviation on that, and you get the level part. That, and you can also use it with the section box function, as it only checks whatever is visible. This combined with like filters in Revit, you can also divide your model in different ways. I hope that added a bit to your questions, guys.
Yeah, that was definitely helpful, Alan. Thank you for adding up to it. Like I said, an end user giving insights, it's always helpful. I would also request our audience, as well as Alan, you, if you have any suggestions or if you are looking forward to, something which you would want us to integrate or you would want us to check if that can be a part as a part of the upgrade of the plugin, do feel free to put it in the chat, and we will definitely look into it. I see another question in the chat. In manual QC, one can send an image and location of the deviation or missing item clearly and later can check whether that is done or not. Is that clarity missing here? So Ajinkya, sort of anyone would like to take this?
I'm not sure if I'm getting this correctly. So is it the question related to only manual QC and if that is correctly followed or not, or is it related to the deviation? I'll explain both. Yes, in manual QC, one can send the image and the location of the tolerance or the deviation where the items are missing or deviated from its point cloud data. And we can double check that if that has been corrected or not. Same you can do with the deviation inspector as well, because anyway, whenever we even if we are not sure about it, we will go double check and we will run the deviation checker again in that case to see if the items have been done correctly or not after the changes.
I hope that helps to answer you, Anita. Okay, I also see a few more questions. So can this tool be used in any scan related modeling like Maya or some scan related organic modeling?
Yeah, if you're talking about scan, so currently we are supporting point clouds which are scanned by a LiDAR scanner. So like Maya or some related organic modeling basically. If the scan does have been generated through a LiDAR scan, yeah, it would work on it in Revit if we are talking about it as of right now.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ajinkya. I also see people are requesting if they can get a recording of this meeting. We'll surely try to look into that as well. And yeah, I must say this was a great knowledge pouring session as well as an insightful session, because we didn't just see what has happened, but we also discussed how is it progressing and what is the way ahead. So all in all, a great session, guys. Thank you so much. It was great to have you all for this session, and I'm sure our audience also liked the session, felt it insightful. um, since we are running out of time, we will have to close the session for today, but hoping to see you soon in the upcoming webinars that we plan. If you have any queries regarding this plugin, or if you have queries regarding this webinar, feel free to reach out to us. You already, go to our website, reach out to us. Feel free to put in your suggestions as well as your questions in the chat box if you still have any. Since we are out of time, we will have to say a bye, but we will definitely get back to you one on one in case we see anything which we could not answer or take as a pointer in this session. Having said that, it's a having a wish you all a great day or evening, or for people from India and all, have a great night, guys. Thank you for your time, and it was great to have you all, including the speakers. Thanks, Alan, once again. um, have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.